Death is a part of life. Some of us may fear it, others might not, but it is inevitable that all of us will one day die. We hear about people dying in the news or in our everyday lives, and it reminds us of how fragile life is. With the recent outbreak of the coronavirus, many of us have been plagued with fear, because with the coronavirus comes a possibility of death. After all, it has already happened to hundreds, if not thousands of people. This fear might cause us to wear masks in public and attempt to protect ourselves, or to stay away from areas where we might be more prone to catching the disease. However, what if I told you that we participate in an activity that has claimed millions of lives on a yearly basis? What if I told you that we willingly engage in one of the deadliest activities known to man without even a second thought? Although the world is much more interconnected than it was even as recently as a decade ago, most of us are still required to drive every day. In fact, statistics show that there are approximately 222 million people with a driver's license in the United States alone. For us living here in LA County, we can spend several hours every day on the road. At one point or another, we have all probably been on the road with someone who isn't fit to be driving, whether because of age, lack of skill, or recklessness. I've been driving for over 10 years now and have seen my share of accidents and even deaths due to improper driving. I myself have also been involved in several accidents, whether it was the fault of the other party or my own. One of these accidents involved a totaled car and a renewed perspective on the dangers of driving. With driving being such a huge part of our lives, I believe it is necessary to take every step possible to make the experience as safe as possible. I would like to share today the problems caused by driving and what can be done to try to prevent some of these problems. Driving is an extremely dangerous activity which leads to millions of deaths every year. According to the CDC, the average number of car accidents in the US every year is 6 million. Also, more than 90 people die in car accidents every day. Drunk driving, aggressive driving, and distracted driving account for almost all of the deaths caused from driving. Statistics show that aggressive driving alone accounts for 66% of traffic fatalities. If you text while you drive, you are 23 times more likely to crash. Sending or receiving a text distracts drivers for an average of 4.6 seconds, which is equivalent to driving the length of a football field while blind. If you drive drunk, you or those around you may be one of the almost 30 people who die every day in the US. That's one person for every 50 minutes. A study from National General Insurance found that 18% of licensed American drivers would fail the knowledge test for a learner's permit if they were to retake it. Another study claims that nearly 40% will fail. In 2016, 18% of all traffic fatalities were among people 65 years and older. This translates to 6,165 fatalities, whereas drunk driving accounted for 10,497 deaths. Per mile traveled, crash rates involving fatalities increase beginning at age 75 and rise significantly after age 80. This is due to a higher chance of injury and medical complications in the drivers. Barring extreme weather conditions and mechanical failure, driving accidents are almost completely caused by human error and poor decision making. Also, I believe that the laws in place for driver's license renewals and offenders of traffic laws are not strict enough. Drunk driving, aggressive driving, and distracted driving are all caused by poor choices made by irresponsible drivers. A car in itself, while still potentially dangerous, becomes exponentially more dangerous when a person gets behind the wheel and starts to make bad decisions. Currently, all that is required for a license renewal is the filling out of a form and the paying of a fee. Sometimes written tests are necessary, but this is not very often. For elderly drivers aged 70 and over, a renewal in person is required every 5 years, as well as a vision and written test. Driving tests are only required if there are indications of driver impairment. We as drivers have a responsibility to share the road safely, and it is up to us to be diligent in doing so. For those of us who have shotguns, we know that when handling something that has the potential to take a life, we must treat it with the utmost care and respect. I believe the same philosophy should be applied to cars and driving. Stricter laws should be put in place for driving, as it is one of the leading causes of death. I believe that drivers found guilty of using their phones, being drunk, or driving recklessly should be punished more harshly in order to discourage these types of actions. I also believe that road tests should be required for license renewals to ensure that the person is still capable of driving safely and responsibly. Doing so would at the very least reduce the number of fatalities that is already far too high. With driving being our main form of transportation, it is very difficult to avoid being in a car at some point in our lives. It is imperative that we make this process as safe as possible. Accidents caused from driving are one of the leading causes of death, and it is almost always caused by human error and poor decision making. We need to be more proactive in abstaining from unsafe driving habits, and I believe that the laws for driving should reflect how dangerous it is. Driving is a privilege, and an extremely dangerous one. Because of this, we should treat it as such. The next time you're on the road, remind yourself of your responsibility as a driver. Put down your phone, resist the urge to cut that person off, and call an Uber if you have had something to drink. Doing so might just save a life.